Hello everyone. I wanted to show you how I actually put together my gouache palette because I got to make it anyway, so I figured I might as well record the whole process. All right, so this is actually an old one. I'm going to take this one apart and then we're going to make a fresh one. But hey guys, thanks for watching. All right, so first comes the autopsy. The basic construction is parchment paper, followed by illustration board. This is Strathmore series, 500 series, which is cotton-based. And then it's followed by paper towel, and then a plexiglass that was custom cut to fit inside my watercolor palette. So it doesn't have to be a watercolor palette. This is just what I had, what I was already using. And so this just made sense. Acrylics. Well, I mostly use it for gouache, but I do use acrylic wash occasionally whenever I need to do certain effects, especially if I need something that is a little more graphic, or I need to do some lettering, or I need really strong highlights, that kind of stuff. Plus, once you put it on this, the paints will keep for weeks, if not more, as long as you tend to it kind of like a little garden and keep watering it every day. So let's go ahead and take it apart. This is parchment paper, and I'll show you guys the brand in a moment. But first I'm going to take this off. It's still wet, but it was starting to peel up, which is when you should toss it. All right, this is the illustration board, and as you can see, it's thoroughly soaked. This is what I use as the sponge. It's less spongy than a real sponge, which is actually what we want, at least for me. The nice thing about this is it's completely customizable. Now, previously I was using paper towels, but for this demonstration, I'm going to switch to a microfiber cloth. But paper towels work just as well, and sometimes it's better with paper towels because you can just throw them away after you're done. Because if you do keep it for too long, it will start to smell. All right, so this is plexiglass. The main thing is you just need something that won't be warped by water, and can just sit there for weeks. All right, so this is my microfiber cloth. And I've always got a little spritzer. You can soak the whole thing too. I just always have a spritzer, and I always have one of these wash bottles around. All right. Now what you can't see is off to the side, I've just got a basin, like another little palette. It's filled with water that will allow me to soak the various materials. So now that this is soaked, I'll wrap it around. Now things do tend to get messy with water flying everywhere, so make sure you have a fairly clean surface. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the parchment paper, which is just, this is just regular baking parchment paper, and I pre-soak this. So I'm going to put this in the basin of water and make sure that it fully gets saturated. The main reason being that you need to make sure that it expands, because if you try and put it on while it's still dry, it will kind of buckle and do things unevenly. Because as it gets wet, the paper expands by quite a bit. So usually that means when I'm cutting it to size for the palette, I usually cut it maybe a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch shorter than what it looks like it needs. right, so that's nice and flat. And it doesn't take that long for the parchment paper to soak up the water and expand, just like a minute or so. And it doesn't look very different. It's just wet. Now, this one is shorter than I actually need, but I just had an extra piece, so we're going to use it. I'll probably line it up to my left side, since that's usually the side closest to me. So that's basically what it looks like. You want to get out all the air bubbles. Oh, you know what? I forgot. Then I put this on top of the sponge. And again, this is Strathmore 500 series. Any kind of cotton-based illustration border work. That goes on top. That's cut to size. And that does a couple things. First, it gives me a firm surface to work on, because I actually use like a little palette knife on it. And then second of all, it turns everything white. But you could actually use a gray one too. That would work as well. So there it is. It's all wrapped up. It's nice and flat. And the sponge just goes on the side. That'll hold the water in a little channel. You can see that the palette below is a little bit wider, and that's just to hold the water. When I was getting the plexiglass cut, I made sure it was a little bit shorter. Leave like a little channel in there. All right. And then it's actually a little, at this point it's too wet. So then I'll take some paper towels and I'll go and dry everything up. Because you don't want, I've used other Stay Wet palettes. There's a brand name, Stay Wet. It's spelled incorrectly, STA-palette, -wet palette. But I find that one, it just soaks up too much water, and then the gouache becomes too runny. And the other thing is gouache, different pigments absorb water at different rates. So, you know, your grays might get really, really watery, and then your yellow ochre is going to be, you know, almost completely dry at the same time on the same palette. Okay, and so when you touch it, you know, with your fingers, it should be damp, but not wet. You know, it should feel cold. Okay, and so then, you know, every day I come and look at it and see how it's doing, and see if it needs water, and then I just take my little wash bottle and fill it up on the sides. And it just absorbs it via capillary action. Okay, and then I'll put a few paints on there just so you can see that process. I can't actually show you guys what I'm working on, but I'll be able to reveal it in a few weeks, maybe a couple months, I'm not sure. Depends when they decide to release it. But I use my palette knife, and I usually do sepia, brown umber, and then yellow ochre down here, and then I do the rainbow up top. And, you know, with that palette, you can do pretty much anything. Oopsie. That was too dry. Usually when I open up my gouache, I do it on top of my water basin so that I can avoid the crumblies. I'll just blame it on stage fright. I'm not going to do the whole palette, but I just want to get a basic sense. And then all along the bottom is where I put white. And it's just titanium white. And like I said, this is mostly what I use for gouache, but then I will occasionally put some acrylic, usually towards the right side. Because when I use acrylic, I'm never using a bunch. I'm usually just putting in some white and some black. And sometimes I'll even use the gouache pigments as a tint or a shade in the white or the black. All right, so I'll mix these up, and then I'll look and see if anyone has any questions. It's just, you know, a real quick demo because I had to get this done anyway. I figured I'd share what little knowledge I have. Yeah, burnt umber. Ooh, that burnt umber. I'm sorry, burnt sienna is dying. But when that happens, I just put a little water in it and let it sit for a while. And I usually just take some white and spread things out just so I can see what the color looks like. And then up here, you know, I'd have alizarin crimson followed by some kind of pure red. Well, actually the name is pure red, at least in Holbein gouache, followed by flame red, bright orange, permanent yellow orange, and then sometimes lemon yellow. I don't use a lot of lemon yellow, but every once in a while. So my palette is very heavily weighted towards the red to orange spectrum. And that's just because everything in gouache, it tends towards the cooler side, so I'm always using red through yellow to warm things up again. Like, you know, gouache doesn't need any help getting cool, especially because you're adding white all the time. And then if you add white to sepia, it goes straight to a warm gray. And then usually what I'll do is I'll take I actually have 3 or 4 grays, like pre-made grays, and I'll usually put them right here because this tends to be where the most palette work gets done, which is, you know, flesh tones, that kind of thing. All the other stuff kind of goes over here because there's not a lot of subtlety to it. You know, if it's a purple sky, I put the purple over here, I put the blue there and the pink there, and I just kind of go at it. Whereas this one, you know, it's a lot of intricacy with skin tones and shadow and all that. So I need a lot more working space from like here to here. And over here goes, you know, acrylic or other stuff like that. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and go through any questions you guys have, and then we'll wrap it up. Like I said, it's just like a 15-minute quick demo. How do you handle acrylics? Fossilize your brushes. Well, you just have to take really good care of your brushes. That's another reason I like gouache better than acrylic, because gouache, I don't have to worry. I just kind of rinse them out and then leave them on the palette and they're good. Whereas acrylic, you really have to make sure there's nothing left on the brush. You either got to wash them or use a lot of water to rinse them out. Are comics dying? No, they're stronger than ever. I think some comics are dying, but you know, there have never been more opportunities to make your own comics, you know, and have them distributed across the entire world. Let's see, did someone suggest microfiber? Yeah, I'm making the switch just because I wanted something a little bit more durable and that would also soak up a little bit more water because the paper towel that I was using, it was only one layer and it just wasn't sucking up quite enough water. How's my day going? Pretty good so far. Always a good day when the schools are open, the kids are there, and they're learning and having fun. That's, never a sure thing these days. How often do you change this palette out? If I'm painting continuously, I almost never, change it out. I had to now because it was sitting there and I forgot to water it one day. It's like a plant, it'll die. So I'm doing this one because I needed a fresh one. Is this a painting for comics or movie? It is for, you know what? It's kind of in between. What I will say is it's for a Kickstarter project that involves comics and a movie. But it is a property that you will know and I've worked on before. Is it acrylic wash or acrylic you're using? It is acrylic wash. Here is just gouache. But what I usually add to my palette is this stuff, acrylic wash, which is acrylic paint, but it is made to be, it dries to a matte finish, which works really well for reproduction and just, it looks nice on, I think, on fine art. The only drawbacks, the main one is that you'll never get as dark as you can with oils or acrylics that are varnished. So if you want, that pure, deep black, you've got to essentially put a varnish on it, which you could do on these, but, most people don't do that with gouache. But, if you're using acrylics, it's actually a good idea. So yeah, I talk about both, but specifically I'm using acrylic wash most of the time, but you could just as easily use this for acrylic. All right, any last questions, guys? Otherwise, I'm gonna get right to painting. Like I said, I wish I could show you, but I can't. All right, I think that's about it. Acrylic gouache weirds me out. It's just acrylic and it dries matte. It works out really well, especially for reproduction. I've done some oil painting before and I've done some acrylic painting, and it's always a challenge to scan that in because it's just so reflective. Oh, hey, Ethan. I'm doing well, man. Hope you're doing well too. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for watching. Good luck painting. Stay safe and healthy out there, and I guess I'll see you guys out on social media. Thanks for watching. Take care.